Hello and welcome to another CAD clip on our REVIT Architecture or Structure 2011. In the first part of this lesson, I'm going to show you how this custom footing family works, and in the second part of the tutorial we'll show you how to create that family. So I just have a piece of wall here that is 8 inches and it's concrete. So I want to drop that wall down and create a step footing, basically. Okay, and REVIT out of the box really doesn't do a very good job at allowing you to do that, and I've done it with in-place families and finally decided to just create an actual RFA family file and insert it and use some aligning tools to quickly get that. So this has 3 steps in this footing. So I'm just going to start by going to a south elevation and splitting up the wall. So I'm going to go to my south elevation and I'm going to just use my split tool by going to modify and then using my split tool right here. So say split. So I'm going to say, okay, well, however I do this, I could do it in plan or I could do it in elevation, but I'm going to split that wall like that. So I'm going to say, okay, this wall, comes down to here, or I can use a property off of here, base offset, and set this to be -6 feet or something like that. Okay, and then this one just sits there, and this is the one that's going to do the transition. So whatever that offset distance is, it doesn't really matter. I can pull this around, or I can just use these numbers here. It doesn't matter. So the thing is, we get the wall in the right place. So we get this in here, -6. Oh, that's the base offset. So I'm just going to use my align tool and say align this to this. Who cares? Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my level 1 on here. And the first thing I'm going to do with my nice new properties palette is adjust my view range here and say unlimited. So that way I can see down below the wall. Now I'm going to go down to my footing over here. Here it is, a 3-step footing, and bring it in. It's justified by the center, and I'm just going to pick to place it. Doesn't matter where I place it to begin with. If I go to my 3D view, there's my 3D view and there's my footing. Okay, so now I can do this from a couple of places, but let's go to my south elevation. Okay, so I'm saying, okay, well, there's the wall and there's where this has to be. So what I'm going to do is start by using my align tool and say align to here, this guy. Okay, then I'm going to say align to here, this guy. Okay, it's going to divide this up into 3 spaces this way, and then vertically I'm going to say align to the bottom of this wall. There's a reference plane right in here. Click, and it does that. Escape, escape. Okay, now I need to add in my footings to these guys, so I can go back to my home tab on my nice new on my new structural tab, and I'm going to create a foundation wall, and I'm going to use this type, which is a 1 foot, so adds in a 1 foot deep footing on there. Escape, escape, and I can go to my 3D view and I can see what I've got there. Okay, so what I need to do is to make sure that there's a property on here. If I go into here and it says a 3-step footing, and if I go in, there's a footing thickness here. Okay, it just so happens I lucked out with the right thickness, but I could go in here and change this to be 2 feet and hit apply and then hit OK, and what happens is it makes this 2 feet thick. Okay, so in fact I do want it to be 1 foot, so I'm going to go into here and I'm going to say footing thickness is 1 foot, or I could make it 10 inches or 8 inches or whatever I want. Hit OK. Has to be the same as this one. Okay, now I have to just click on here and change the material, which is a property. So I go into here and I say you are cast in place concrete, hit OK, and it's automatically going to join itself up to there. Now all I have to do is edit the profile of this wall. Okay, so I can go to my south elevation and I can grab this piece of wall and say edit the profile, and then I'm just going to use my pick option and say, pick and lock, pick and lock, pick and lock, pick and lock. Escape, escape. Now I can just use my regular trim command, trim these guys, and finish. Escape, escape. Go to my 3D view, and there's my nice footing all tied in. Okay, so we can go to here. So we can take this guy and we can do all kinds of stuff. So if I take this guy and I just use my control button, or I moved it, let's just undo that. Okay, let's using my control button, copy one over. So really what I can do on this is I have a parameter that I can go like this, and I can stretch this footing to be whatever shape I want. Okay, so this is always going to be divided into 3 equal spaces, and this is always going to be divided, and then the thickness of the remaining part here is, which matches up with this, is a property of the thickness. So I go into here and I go down to the properties of this, and I go into, I believe it's a type property, and I can go in here and change this to be 10 inches, and then hit apply, and it'll adjust that little bottom leg. Okay, hitting OK. Okay, I can also go in and say step length. This is set to be 28 feet. I can go in here and set this to be 8 feet, and the total step height to be 4 feet, and then hit apply, and it'll do it. So I can use the grips to stretch here, or I can set the step length and step height, total length and height, and then I can also go into my type properties and set this. Okay, this width and length, or this length isn't being used, and then the width is the width, which is, we'll see if I go to my first floor plan, you can see these are my other footings, which are set to be 3 feet. Again, I lucked into that, but I could go into here and set the width to be 4 feet if I wanted to, and it will center that inside of there. Just so happens that it came in at the same width as this footing. So that's the family. In this case, it only has 3 steps. We'll show you how to make that in our next lesson.